Have you ever wondered why some people emerge from pain carrying a presence that is hard to name, strong, deep, unbreakable, while others are shattered by the very same ordeal? Nietzsche would say the difference lies not in luck, but in how the soul confronts suffering. You think you are weak because life is cruel. But Nietzsche would look straight at you and ask, is that weakness your nature, or merely the result of always avoiding the very forces meant to make you strong? In this era, people do everything they can to avoid pain, hiding in comfort, retreating into ease, calling withdrawal peace. But Nietzsche knew what we try to forget. Greatness does not bloom in the light. It is forged in fire. Without suffering, a human being exists only in their safest version, small, fearful, easily broken by the slightest wind. And that is why you are here. This video does not come to comfort you. It comes to tear away the layers of protection that weaken you, to show you that pain is not the enemy, but the doorway. The doorway from ordinary to exceptional, from mere existence to greatness, from victim to self-creator. If you are brave enough to face the truth Nietzsche places before you, the journey toward becoming exceptional begins right here. Number 1. Why suffering is the foundation of an exceptional human being. There is a truth most people only dare to admit when life forces them to their knees. It is not happiness, not safety, but suffering that shapes your true nature. Nietzsche never spoke indirectly about this. He would look straight at you and ask, if pain vanished from your life, what would remain to prove that you had ever lived? And it is here that the journey of understanding why suffering creates an exceptional human being truly begins. Nietzsche once said, "To live is to suffer. To survive is to find meaning in the suffering." This sentence is not meant to comfort you, but to strike directly at what you have always avoided seeing, that a smooth life never produces an exceptional person. And the modern world, by painting everything in comfort, has led you to misunderstand yourself. You think you are weak. You think you are exhausted. You think you are not enough. While Nietzsche would say, the real issue is that you have never allowed pain to teach you what it came to teach. You may have wondered why those who grow up in adversity possess a certain look in their eyes, a kind of vitality that is hard to define. It is not because they are more special than you, but because they have learned a lesson most modern people avoid at all costs. Suffering is not an obstacle, it is raw material. It is like micro tears in muscle, tiny, burning ruptures each time you lift a heavier weight. If you looked inside the muscle at that moment, you would see destruction. But that very destruction forces the body to rebuild itself, thicker, stronger, more resilient. Nietzsche viewed human beings by the same law. Without inner rupture, there is no rebirth of the soul. Consider a very ordinary example. A man named Daniel, whom I once met at a workshop. He said that for many years he had avoided challenges, choosing easy jobs, safe environments, relationships that demanded no confrontation. Daniel was not lazy. He was simply so afraid of failure that he lived in a gray zone, a place with no pain, but no vitality either. Until one day, his company restructured, and Daniel was forced to lead a project far beyond his current abilities. Those 3 months were months of sleepless nights, confusion, and panic. He wanted to quit. He thought he was not smart enough. He felt exposed. But when the project ended, Daniel said something that silenced the entire room. I realized it wasn't that the work was too hard. It was that my life had been too easy. In that moment, he saw what Nietzsche always wanted people to admit. Without challenge, you can never know who you are. Suffering, for Nietzsche, is never a sign of failure. It is a sign of life. A life that passes too smoothly is not a fortunate life. It is a life without enough weight to shape you. That is why Nietzsche could be so cold as to say, "What does not kill me makes me stronger." Not because he romanticized pain, but because he understood a ruthless law of existence. Life grows only when it is challenged. Imagine that you are a raw bar of steel. In its original state, it bends easily, breaks easily, and is easily shaped by others. But when steel is placed in a furnace, the extreme heat turns it red hot and soft, and then the blacksmith strikes it with a hammer. Every strike hurts, but every strike gives form. That is how steel becomes a blade. And Nietzsche would ask, do you want to be raw steel or a sword? If you choose the sword, you cannot demand a life without fire. Suffering becomes the foundation of greatness, not because it automatically makes you strong, but because it forces you to face the most honest part of yourself. When pain arrives, all disguises fall away. The stories you once told to avoid responsibility disappear. You can no longer hide in busyness or comfort. You must look directly at the fear you usually cover with excuses and compromises. In that moment, your true version begins to take shape, not the version trained by society, but the version forged from within. Nietzsche understood what our generation has forgotten. You cannot become exceptional through comfort. You become exceptional through ruthless honesty with yourself, especially at your weakest moments. You cannot access depth of inner power if you spend your life avoiding whatever makes you tremble. And the difference between those who merely survive and those who truly transcend lies here. Survivors try to end the pain. Exceptional beings try to interpret it. If you are moving through a dark season, Nietzsche would not say, "Stay strong." He would say, "Stay there a little longer and observe." Because the place you believe is the end may be where your strongest version is born. And when you understand this, pain no longer appears as an enemy. It becomes the strictest teacher and the only one capable of turning you into an exception within your own life. If there is a pain that has forged you into a stronger version of yourself today, write that story in the comments. Not to complain, but to look directly at the evidence that your strength was born in the harshest place. And perhaps your words will awaken someone who still believes the easy path can produce a strong human being. Number 2, addiction to comfort, the disease of the age. Have you ever wondered what has made this generation weaker, more fragile, more likely to give up than those before it? Nietzsche would not blame circumstances or the era. He would point directly at the thing we unconsciously worship: comfort. Comfort is the greatest enemy of inner strength. We live in a time where every discomfort has an immediate escape. When bored, we open TikTok to vanish into seconds of distraction. When loneliness brushes the chest, we quickly message a backup connection, just to fill the gap. When unsure what to do, we drift into endless scrolling. When tired, we order food to soothe ourselves. When sad, we turn to movies to forget what is happening inside. Nietzsche warned early about this way of living when he wrote, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." But today's problem is not a lack of how, but the absence of why. Comfort steals from you the reason to endure, to persist, to grow. And when there is no reason to endure, the capacity to endure disappears. Consider how the brain works. You touch hot water, you pull back, you face difficulty. The brain instantly signals danger, avoid. But unlike our ancestors who faced predators and storms, what makes you withdraw today is an uncomfortable email, a tight deadline, a tense conversation, or a relationship that demands maturity. The brain has never been trained for these psychological discomforts, so it equates all challenge with threat. And so you develop a toxic formula. If something is hard, it must be wrong, and you quit. Nietzsche saw this as a clear sign of a weakened will. Avoiding pain does not make you safe, it makes you smaller. Modern people quit jobs because demands exceed their comfort zone. They abandon love at the first emotional collision. They abandon plans because progress feels slower than expected. Not because they are incapable, but because they are addicted to ease. A life that is too smooth breeds fragility, like a seed watered excessively, but never allowed to touch soil. You want to grow, yet you fear darkness and resistance. I once worked with a woman named Lila in a mentoring program. Lila was intelligent and capable, but every time her project encountered a small obstacle, she felt as if the world had turned against her. She said, "I can't stand the feeling of failure. It feels like someone is crushing my chest." But as we went deeper, it became clear that Lila had never had to fight for anything. Everything in her life, career, relationships, achievements, had come too easily and too quickly. That smoothness left her without psychological immunity. When she encountered her first real challenge, she thought it meant she was on the wrong path, when in truth, it was the first moment life invited her to mature. We are not weak because suffering arrives. We are weak because we crave a life without suffering. In literature, a sharp illustration appears in The Truman Show, a film about a man who lives his entire life inside an artificial world designed to contain no real suffering. Everything is safe, pleasant, orderly. But in exchange, Truman has no freedom, no resilience, no reality. Only when disruptions begin, the manufactured storm, the falling light, the rough sea, does he become himself. The paradox of the film mirrors the paradox of our time. A life that is too comfortable will never give you the chance to know how strong you are. We only discover who we are when protective layers are stripped away, and we begin wrestling with the truth we have avoided for too long. Nietzsche would mock this addiction to comfort because it produces people who cannot carry the weight of their own lives. And he would not console you. He would ask, "Do you want to be an exception or a product of your time?" Because this era mass produces fragile human beings, not because they are weak, but because they have never been forged. Look at yourself honestly. What have you abandoned simply because it was not easy? What have you never started because you feared the feeling of losing control? What have you lost because you assumed every difficulty was a sign of error? Nietzsche would demand ruthless answers, because there you will see the true cause of stagnation. You compromised with comfort instead of growing stronger through hardship. And that is why pain makes you exceptional. It removes easy exits. It forces you to stand still and face yourself. It reminds you that strength is not born from smoothness, but from meaningful endurance. The strong are not those who never tremble, but those who do not flee. The exceptional are not those without fear, but those who step forward despite it. If you truly wish to become an exception as Nietzsche envisioned, you must relearn one simple yet difficult truth. Pain does not destroy you. avoidance of pain does. Number 3. Suffering as the furnace of becoming the Übermensch. And when you realize that comfort has weakened human resolve, you will see an even deeper truth. The more you avoid suffering, the further you move from what Nietzsche considered the ultimate aim of existence, becoming the Übermensch, the human being who is not defined by circumstance, but defines themselves. Nietzsche wrote, "Become who you are." This short yet ruthless command assigns a task only those willing to step into the furnace of pain can understand. Greatness does not come from surpassing others, but from transcending the weakest version of yourself. The concept of the Übermensch, often misunderstood, does not describe a superhero or someone with extraordinary abilities. It describes a type of person who dares to stand alone, who dares to confront inner chaos without retreat, who dares to shatter inherited values and create new standards. The Übermensch does not avoid darkness. They enter it and light their own torch from the flames of suffering. For Nietzsche, pain is not an accident of life, but a necessary condition for spiritual rebirth. Ordinary people see suffering as injustice, as failure. The Übermensch sees it as a furnace, where what is weak melts away, leaving only what is whole, sharp, and real. To clarify this, imagine a natural metaphor. A moth must struggle violently to escape a tight cocoon in order to live. The process is painful, almost impossible, but that pressure forces fluid into its wings, giving it the strength to fly. If someone, out of pity, cuts the cocoon open, the moth emerges with weak wings and cannot survive. Nietzsche saw humans by the same law. Without pressure from pain, your inner strength will never activate. Spiritual growth does not come from being rescued. It comes from carving your own path. Modern science confirms this. Neuroscience research shows that when humans face challenges beyond their comfort zone, the brain activates neuroplasticity, the ability to rewire itself. Difficulty does not break you. It makes your mind more adaptable, creative, and resilient. Just as muscles grow only under sufficient stress, the psyche expands only when challenged. Nietzsche intuitively grasped this centuries before science could prove it. Without friction, no evolution. Without suffering, no strength. But the Übermensch does not merely endure pain, they use it as raw material. Consider Batman, born from profound loss. Bruce Wayne became a symbol, not because he was ordinary and fortunate, but because he chose to turn trauma into will, to let darkness teach him how to rise rather than crush him. Harry Potter, too, grew not from gifts or protection, but from constant confrontation with fear, loss, and death. Rocky Balboa offers another example. His strength comes not from victory, but from every fall he refuses to stay down in. These figures differ not by circumstance, but by response to suffering. That is the spirit of the Übermensch, not asking why me, but who will I become from this? And this is Nietzsche's point. The Übermensch is not a distant destination, it is a daily choice. Each time you accept a challenge instead of avoiding it, you step closer to the Übermensch. Each time you hold yourself steady in chaos rather than seeking shortcuts, you break an old mold. Each time you take responsibility for your life instead of blaming circumstance, you create a new standard for yourself. Nietzsche also knew that humans seek the fastest escape from pain. They cling to comfort, conformity, ease, because these require no confrontation with the self. But a transcendent human being cannot emerge from convenience. Just as you cannot forge a sword with cold water, you cannot forge yourself through gentle experiences. Nietzsche would ask one simple blade-sharp question. Who do you choose to become after this pain? The answer determines whether you remain ordinary or become transcendent. At this point, you understand why suffering is not only a foundation, but a doorway. Those who see pain as a burden will always flee it. Those who see it as a furnace allow themselves to be transformed. And when you stop asking, "How do I end the pain?" and begin asking, "What is this pain shaping within me?" you step onto the very path Nietzsche called self-overcoming. Because ultimately, according to Nietzsche, it is not ease, but the wounds you dare to walk through that turn you into an exception, a human being whose greatness is forged in the furnace of suffering. If you are truly ready to step into your own furnace, leave a single word in the comments. Rising, not to prove anything to the world, but to send a quiet reminder to your own soul that you choose to stand up. You choose to evolve, even when everything around you would rather see you fall. Number 4. Amor Fati, the art of loving pain to become exceptional. Amor Fati, the art of loving one's fate, is the hidden pillar Nietzsche reserved for those brave enough to face the essence of suffering. If the previous sections showed why pain is the raw material of greatness, Amor Fati marks the deeper shift. You do not merely endure what happens, you choose to love it. Not a blind or submissive love, but the love of someone who understands that every event is a necessary link in the chain of becoming exceptional. Nietzsche wrote, "My formula for greatness in a human being is amor fati, that one wants nothing to be different." A seemingly paradoxical statement that holds the key to inner power. Great individuals do not wish for an easier life. They wish to be large enough to receive everything as an essential part of growth. We usually resist what happens to us. When we fail, we resent it. When we lose, we rebel. When rejected, we try to prove our worth. We think this resistance is strength, but it only reveals one thing. We do not yet trust ourselves enough to see meaning behind what feels unfair. Amor Fati does not love pain as torture. It loves it as a tool of fate, something sent not to destroy us, but to restructure us. The pain you live through today may be the fragment you will one day thank for preventing you from becoming mediocre. I once worked with Marissa, a New York entrepreneur who stood on the edge of bankruptcy. She said the collapse of her company was the most humiliating moment of her life. Friends distanced themselves, partners turned away, family doubted her. She fell into self-blame, convinced fate was unfair. But after months of forced reflection, she realized something bitter. Success that came too early and too easily had made her careless and stagnant. That collapse was not accidental. It was the only thing that could force her to rebuild herself. She said a sentence Nietzsche would have nodded at. "If my company hadn't collapsed that day, I might be a version of myself I wouldn't respect today." Marissa did not merely overcome the event, she loved it, because only by loving it could she see its rebirth value. Her amor fati was not philosophy, it was lived experience. Nietzsche saw a truth modern humans fear. You cannot choose only the beautiful parts of life and reject the ugly ones. To grow, you must love both. Amor Fati does not teach submission. It teaches you to lift your head in the storm and say, "I am here to learn." When you move from asking, "Why me?" to "What is this teaching me?" you immediately cease to be a victim of fate. You become its interlocutor, and in that moment, you separate yourself from 99% of people. History shows that exceptional individuals share one trait. They do not resent circumstance. Marcus Aurelius, Roman emperor and philosopher, lost his wife and 8 children, yet did not collapse. In Meditations, he wrote that every sorrow returned him to duty and dignity. His strength did not lie in the throne, but in his mind's refusal to shatter when life took nearly everything. Viktor Frankl, psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor, lost his entire family, yet recognized what Nietzsche had said. Humans can endure almost anything if they find meaning in suffering. From that hell, he wrote Man's Search for Meaning, transforming personal tragedy into a philosophy that helped millions rise. They were great not because of luck, but because they chose to love their wounded path. That choice made them exceptions, true to Nietzsche's Amor Fati. And if you think Amor Fati is reserved for philosophers or historical figures, look back at your own life. How many things did you once resist, only to later realize that without them, you would not stand where you are today? Relationships that ended felt like destruction, but ultimately freed you from a version of yourself that was too small. Opportunities lost caused deep pain, yet opened a truer direction. You do not need to like pain to know it was necessary. But to become exceptional, you must learn to love even what you did not choose. Amor Fati marks the shift from endurance to agency. It transforms suffering from burden into resource. It moves you from resistance to acceptance, from stagnation to clarity. That is why it is the missing piece in the journey Nietzsche called greatness. Everyone wants strength. Everyone wants to be an exception. But only those who love fate, wholly without selection, reach the end. Amor Fati shows you why you can enter the furnace without fear, because within this philosophy lies an unavoidable truth. Pain does not only make you strong, it makes you singular. It turns you into something life cannot mass produce. And when you can say even to the darkest events, I choose to love you, you cross the line Nietzsche called exceptional, a human being who not only survives suffering, but becomes extraordinary because of it. Number 5. Will to power. How pain awakens the supreme force within you. When you have learned to love your fate, Nietzsche throws you into a deeper layer, where pain is no longer something merely to endure or transform, but fuel that awakens an ancient life force sleeping within you, the will to power. If Amor Fati opens the door for you to accept every event, then the will to power teaches you how to step out of them with the strength you yourself never believed you possessed. Nietzsche wrote, "Life itself is the will to power." A stark statement, yet it is the inner map of all existence. The drive to rise is not a virtue. It is the primal structure of life itself. And pain, the thing you fear most, is precisely the switch that ignites this essence. People often misunderstand the will to power as the desire to dominate others. But Nietzsche never spoke of such cheap power. The power he described is not power over others, but power over oneself, the capacity to shape a sharper, heavier, truer being from whatever life throws at you. When Nietzsche affirmed that all life seeks to rise, he was not comforting you. A plant breaks through the soil not because it wants to surpass others, but because it cannot do otherwise. Its instinct toward light forces it upward. Human beings are the same. Without this upward drive, you do not live, you merely prolong existence. And pain is the moment that shatters the old shell, forcing you to emerge as a different version of yourself. To feel this more clearly, consider the story of Tom, a man I met in a long-distance running group. Tom had never dared to play sports because his entire childhood he was labeled weak. But one day, after a painful breakup that left him hollow, Tom decided to run one lap around the park just to escape the suffocating feeling. He nearly quit after a few hundred meters. But the pain in his chest, not only from his body, but from a lifetime of being underestimated, would not let him stop. The next week, 2 laps. A month later, 5 laps. And on a rainy day, while running farther than ever before, Tom said something I will never forget. "I run because it hurts. But the more I run, the stronger I become." Tom was not running to defeat anyone. He was running to end the old version of himself. That is the will to power, the underlying current that pulls you beyond every limit you once believed defined you. The will to power is not a heroic moment. It is a persistent force that refuses to let you settle into your old shape. It is the ability to stand when others remain on the ground. It is the instinct to create a new direction instead of blaming fate. It is the choice to take one more step where everyone else stops. And most importantly, the will to power turns adversity into data, not a sentence. Edison said he did not fail 999 times. He simply discovered 999 methods that did not work. That is the will to power. Helen Keller, unable to see, unable to hear, did not become an icon because of her circumstances. She became one because her will forced circumstances to change form. Nietzsche believed that within every human being exists a life force that longs to break the outer shell, like a seed that wants to split the earth and rise. You never know how strong you are until you face something that tries to break you. It is there that pain, the thing you have always feared, becomes the key that opens the door you have searched for your entire life. The ability to self-create. Look back at your own life. Is there something you abandoned simply because it made you uncomfortable? Is there a goal you gave up on before your will had time to awaken? Is there a part of your life that, because it hurt, you never allowed to forge you into someone else? Nietzsche would say, "The will to power is not born in the light, but in the darkness where you believe you are about to collapse." And when you understand the will to power in this sense, you will see the truth Nietzsche wanted to drive deep into you. Pain does not threaten your existence. It invites you into your strongest form. Willpower cools when life is smooth. But when life shakes, it ignites like a fire that cannot be extinguished. Exceptional people do not surpass others by circumstance, they surpass them by will. And the will to power is the engine of that exceptionality, the force that turns suffering not only into a trial, but into fuel to transcend yourself, to transcend everything you once were. If what you have just heard stirs a small movement inside you, a quiet impulse you cannot ignore, press like on this video. Not as a social media click, but as a silent declaration to yourself. You are tired of the old version, and it is time to step beyond it. Number 6. Eternal recurrence. When pain does not only test you, but rebirths you. As you reach the end of this journey, you step into a depth Nietzsche considered the most ruthless test for any soul that seeks to become an exception: eternal recurrence. At this level, pain is no longer a passing event you overcome and move on from. It becomes the ultimate question. If your entire life, every failure, every humiliation, every collapse, every night you wished you could disappear, were to repeat infinitely, would you have the strength to say, "I choose it"? Nietzsche called this the test of a soul's value, because the weak kneel before this thought, while the strong stand upright and accept their life as an act of affirmation. Nietzsche wrote, "What is falling, that should also be pushed." Not because he was cruel toward human beings, but because he understood a brutal truth. If you are not strong enough to want your life to repeat forever, then your life does not yet carry enough weight to be lived even once. Eternal recurrence does not ask whether you have overcome suffering. It asks whether you dare to affirm suffering as an inseparable part of your being. Ordinary people wish they had never suffered. Exceptional people see suffering as a mark, without which they would no longer be themselves. The clearest image for this spirit is not a seed growing under pressure, but a seed forced to repeat the act of sprouting infinitely. Each time pushing through darkness, each time pressed down by soil, each time buried by storms, with only one question remaining. If it had to live like this forever, would it still choose to rise or choose to remain still? Nietzsche wanted you to become the kind of person who, even knowing the same trials await, still chooses to enter, because that is your nature, not a burden imposed upon you. I once met a man named Elias. For 10 years, he lived the same exact loop, changing jobs because he felt disrespected, starting new relationships only to end them with the same sense of abandonment, setting goals and quitting precisely in the 3rd week. Elias said, "It's like I'm living a life that keeps returning to the starting point." He believed life was unfair, but did not realize that he himself was the center of that recurrence. Only when confronted with Nietzsche's question, if all of this were to repeat infinitely, who would you want to be within that loop? Was Elias forced to face a painful truth. It was not circumstances repeating, it was him. Afraid of judgment, he would not stand up. Afraid of failure, he would not move forward. Afraid of being hurt, he abandoned everything before it had a chance. For the first time, he tried to break the loop by doing what he had never done before, taking responsibility instead of blaming. When criticized, he did not quit his job. When difficulty arose, he did not run. When he started a project, he finished it, even if it was imperfect. 3 months later, Elias said, "If my life must repeat forever, at least I want to repeat it as this version of myself, the one who no longer runs." That is the spirit of eternal recurrence. Not changing life, but changing how you enter life. Look at bamboo in a storm. If the storm comes only once, bamboo can endure it by instinct. But if the storm comes forever, the same storm repeating infinitely, there are only 2 possibilities. Either it breaks in the first strike, or it becomes the kind of bamboo every storm must respect. Eternal recurrence places you into that exact test. Do you want your life to repeat as it is now? If the answer is no, Nietzsche does not ask you to change circumstances. He asks you to change essence, because only when essence changes does the loop change. In the spirit of eternal recurrence, pain is no longer a lesson meant to help you grow, but a mirror exposing whether you are living a life that, if repeated, you would have the courage to accept. Fragile people want to forget what hurt them. Strong people do not want to forget. They want to become the kind of person who, even if that pain returns, does not tremble. That is Nietzsche's standard for a soul of value, not survival, not superiority, but the strength to say yes to one's own life, even if it repeats eternally without change. Look at yourself. The moments when you were most profound, most awake, most transformed, did they come from peaceful days or from the darkest ones? If old pain returned once more, would you collapse again? Or would you stand differently? Eternal recurrence does not teach you to avoid repetition. It teaches you to become the kind of person whom repetition cannot break. And here is Nietzsche's coldest strike. He does not want you to live a life that is merely bearable. He wants you to live a life that, if lived infinitely, you could lift your head and say, I choose this exact life. That is not comfort. It is the standard by which the strength of your soul is measured. When you grasp this, you see a sharp truth. Pain does not come to destroy you, but to give you the chance to become the kind of person whom even suffering cannot change. And it is here that you understand why Nietzsche saw eternal recurrence as the ultimate sign of greatness. Not because you avoid how much pain you endure, but because you become the kind of person who can live it again and again without losing your strongest essence. If you have come this far, you have seen what Nietzsche wanted you to face from the beginning. Suffering does not destroy you. Fleeing from it does. When you stop running from your wounds, you begin to hear what Nietzsche considered the foundation of greatness. The will to become the strongest version of yourself. And then you realize a hard but liberating truth. Pain does not take away your strength. It only strips away the illusions that once made you weak. Becoming exceptional is not avoiding what makes you tremble. It is entering the darkness so it can forge you into something life cannot replicate. An extraordinary mind is not a mind without pain. It is a mind that knows how to use pain as fuel. When you reach the state Nietzsche called self-overcoming, your presence changes. Calm yet sharp, still yet unbreakable. You no longer need to prove anything. The pain you have walked through is the evidence. If this message resonates with you, send it to someone who believes their pain is the end. And if you want to continue the journey toward becoming an exception, becoming the kind of human being whom adversity does not break, but ignites, subscribe, and walk with us. Because greatness is not born from convenience. It is born the moment you decide, this pain will upgrade me, not destroy me.